we really wanted to do was draw people out into the landscape and give them more information, because as he mentioned, a lot of times people come, they go to the visitor center, they go into the pit, and that's it. But the landscape is really integral to understanding the site. And also we wanted to sort of tell these stories that are we know a lot about various parts of the site, but are not really obvious to the visitor. So we have this kind of trail that we've developed, and then we put things like ranging poles to attract people out into the landscape, so you can see quite a few around as you look around the landscape. So we at Grimes, we have 430 mine shafts. So the lumps and bumps are all the top of a mine shaft, which is kind of amazing. So we know we have 433. There's probably quite a few more that are not visible to the eye. So we think there might have been 500, 600 in total here. This is quite a lot. And I should also point out, over in that field over there, which is called the West Field, they were also mining, but in shallow pits. So the deep pits are only during the Neolithic, and this site dates to around 4,500, 600 years ago. That's the end of the Neolithic. So this was in use by early farmers. They originally come from France about 6,000 years ago. So this is the time when they're really transforming their landscape on a massive scale. They're really going to town, building monuments. We're starting to get things like Stonehenge, Avebury, and a whole load of other sites. So what's fascinating here is the amount of labor and effort that would have gone into mining here would have been as monumental as building any of those monuments from that period of time. So I always say that this is like an inverted monument. The landscape itself, everything's kind of underground, but it's sort of evocative in that sense. So of the sites here, of the mine shafts, we have 433, but only around 20 or so have been actually excavated by archaeologists. So that's not that many. That's only going to be there, right? And when we built the sort of base of the new building, we had to just cut a little bit around the edge of the top of the pit. And we work very closely with historic England to do this. So we have walkie briefs where archaeologists come in to make sure nothing's coming up. And spectacularly, something came up, no one expected it. And what was really amazing is that what came up was an old ground surface from over 4,000 years ago. So it's a place where someone was sitting as they're starting to bring up chunks of flint from the bottom of the mine, and they're just testing out those pieces of flint, just seeing if they're really good bits, starting to like flake, or what we call like chipping, flaking, so just starting to work it. And so there's hundreds of flints that we found from this moment in time when someone's just sitting there testing out their flint, and a few objects that they're starting to work on. So it's a kind of time collapse of someone actually sitting there having their activity as part of the work of the site that we found just by accident. So there's so much to still discover here, and it's a really fascinating place in that sense. But this is maybe one of the more fascinating stories from the site. It's a little bit of a controversial one. Has anyone heard of the Grimes Graves goddess?
We were told about it and
yes. Okay, so did Dickon tell you the sort of full story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I won't go into it too much, but she was found. This is the pit where she was discovered. This pit is about 6 meters deep to get down to the floor stone. And did he talk about the different layers of flint?
Yeah.
Excellent. He's covered many things for me. So obviously they're trying to get down to the third deepest layer of flint, which is the kind of purest tabular flint. And one thing that's really particular about this site is that and you'll notice if we have time to kind of walk across it, that we're on a bit of a hill, a bit of a slope. So actually to access that deep flint, the floor stone, at 6 meters here, There, it's 9 meters. If you go down to one of the earliest pits, our deepest pit, it's 13 meters. That's almost 40 feet. It's a long way down.
So that begs the question, how did they know that flint was that there?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
One theory is that they're coming up from the river, so the little ooze kind of down a couple miles that way. And we are up here on a little bit of a chalk spur. It doesn't seem very hilly. I mean, he's saying that it's not the hilliest, but we are on slightly higher ground. And there, maybe the geology, it might have been eroding out by the river. So they might have spotted these layers of flint. They're also, it's a little bit more modeled together over there, so they might have followed it up. But this band of chalk flint actually goes all the way down to the South Downs in different configurations. The earliest flint mines are down on the south coast, and they go back to the first farmers. So people coming along from France, actually looking at the cliffs you can see from the sea, and spotting where outcrops of stone is. Those mines are almost 6,000 years old. Grimes is weird because flint mining goes out of fashion for about 1,000 years. So why did they come back and start and do it in the most elaborate, sort of complex engineering way? And you'll see when you go down to the pit, it's really complex. Like you're digging down, quite a few meters, and then you're actually building these long galleries. And I can show you. So this is the visitor's pit. It's a massive underground. It's a massive network and honeycomb of sort of different shafts. These are the shafts down, so these are the sort of pit heads going down, and then it goes off in all these different what we call galleries, sort of corridors, and multiple pits actually connect up. So they're putting a lot of thought into the engineering of the site. It's very complex, and actually they build sort of almost columns and arches to make sure they don't collapse. So they don't dig too deep into the wall. They instead follow the veins of the flint along, and they have multiple access points. So if you God forbid there was a cave-in, you could get out a different way. So they're being really clever about the way they're going about